Good evening, everyone. As you all know, the elections for president of the World Psychology Association are coming up. Tonight, we'll be interviewing the two candidates running for president to see their views of two of the world's most famous psychology projects. First, we'll be interviewing Sonia Stark. Sonia, can you please explain Milgram's obedience study?
Social psychologist Stanley Milgram performed an experiment to test how obedient people were when commanded to perform specific tasks. Milgram was a teacher at Yale University and put out an advertisement to get volunteers in his experiment. The flyer said that his experiment was concerned with the effect of punishment on learning. He received about 1,000 participants and created 20 experiments. Milgram's first experiment consisted of men aged 20 to 50 and began with the participants choosing a slip of paper out of a hat. The slip of paper either said teacher or learner. The learner was put in a room and strapped into an electric chair. The teacher was put into an adjoining room with an electric shock machine, which was connected to the electric chair through wires that went in between the walls. The room was being monitored by an experimenter who told the teacher what to do. The teacher was told to ask questions to the learner, and if the answer was incorrect, they were commanded to deliver a shock. The shock's intensity increased in voltage with every wrong answer. The voltage began at 15, which is considered to be a slight shock. As the voltages increased with every wrong answer, the teacher could not only hear the electric buzzing through the shock, but also the reactions of the learner turned from grunts to screaming and begging for the shocks to end. Most teachers were concerned at this point, but the experimenter told them that they must go on. 63% of the time, the teachers obeyed these orders, all the way until the point of supposedly killing the learner, which was about 450 volts. At the end of the experiment, the teachers were told that the learners were acting and actually had not been harmed at all. Before Milgram began the experiment, he made the volunteers take a survey. This survey was created to show when the volunteers believed they would stop delivering shocks. The majority of people said they would stop the second the learner indicated pain. Teachers were shocked to see how far they had gone with this experiment and how off their survey answers had been. This experiment was repeated many times with both men and women, and it revealed that both sexes responded to the experiment basically the same. Milgram discovered that the human race is frighteningly submissive to authority. In most cases, people are obedient to the point of causing pain and even death to others. There you go.
Next with us, we are going to interview Angela Andrews. Angela, will you please summarize Jane Elliott's Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes experiment for your viewers?
Teacher Jane Elliott performed an experiment on her third grade class to show the devastating effects of discrimination. The experiment took 2 days, and her all-white class had no idea they were being experimented on. On the first day of the experiment, Teacher Jane asked her class what they thought of African Americans. All of the children replied that black people were gross, useless, lazy, good for nothing, and altogether not as good as white people. The children also referred to African Americans with degrading names like niggers. Jane Elliott then told her class that the blue-eyed children were better than the brown-eyed children. She told the blue-eyed children they were smart, special, talented, not forgetful, and all around completely outshined the brown-eyed children. She told the brown-eyed students they were dumb, forgetful, lazy, all the same, and were a horrible influence on the blue-eyed children. The brown-eyed children were not allowed to mingle with the blue-eyed children during class, at lunch, or on the playground because they were not as good as the blue-eyed children. The brown-eyed children were also forced to wear a collar to show that they were different than the blue-eyed group. The blue-eyed children received benefits. For example, longer playground time and countless compliments from Teacher Jane. The blue-eyed children all worked together extremely well and quickly when they were being tested as a group. Their results were dramatically better and came about much faster than the results of the brown-eyed group. The blue-eyed group continued to be praised, while the brown-eyed group continued to be told they were sluggish and stupid, and that, of course, the blue-eyed group had outshined them because they were so much better. As the day went on, the blue-eyed children became conceited because they had been repeatedly told they were better than the brown-eyed group, and both groups started to believe it. The blue-eyed group insulted the brown-eyed group, pushed and bullied the brown-eyed group, and became angered when the brown-eyed children tried to interact with them. By the end of the day, the blue-eyed children were big-headed and completely believed their teacher by thinking they were indeed better than the brown-eyed group. The brown-eyed group also wholly believed their teacher and considered themselves nowhere near as good as the blue-eyed children. The second half of the experiment started the following day of school. When the teachers came into the classroom, Teacher Jane said she had been wrong the previous day and that the brown-eyed children were in fact better. Now, you might think that since the brown-eyed group had already experienced the sadness in being the worst group, they might be kind to and try to treat the blue-eyed group equally. This assumption is wrong. When given the opportunity to be the better group, the brown-eyed children considered this payback and treated the blue-eyed children the exact same they had been treated the previous day. This day was exactly identical to the day before, just with the roles reversed. The next day, the children came to class and discussed what had happened the previous day. The blue-eyed and brown-eyed children both said that they loved and took advantage of being in the better group, but they hated being in the worst group because it made them feel badly about themselves. Teacher Jane explained to her class that this was an example of discrimination. She explained that after a while, people begin to believe what others are saying about them, whether it be good or bad. The students agreed that discrimination was a horrible thing and that it should be stopped immediately. They all promised to treat African Americans equally because no race is better than another.
Now, Sonia Stark, could you please explain the biopsychosocial analysis of Milgram's obedience study?
Sure. First, I would like to explain the biological influences. When given an order that seems immoral, people become aroused, which is shown through their hormones. Hormones are controlled by the master gland, the pituitary, which is controlled by the hypothalamus brain region that is linked to reward and emotion. When told to deliver a painful shock to someone, people can become upset because they do not want to inflict pain upon someone, but they seek the award of approval from their authority figure. In this experiment, hormones do things like causing your heart rate to go up. Now I'd like to discuss the psychological influences. During the experiment, the teachers had multiple thoughts running through their minds because they did not want to hurt the student, but they desired to obey the authority figure or the instructor's orders. Most people chose to conform to the orders. In the human mind, we desire to be obedient, and it is scary how far we will go to be obedient. Now I'd like to discuss the social cultural influences. People's actions in this experiment were greatly influenced by the media. Movies, for example, can show that you can be punished for not obeying and submitting to authority. So when put in this situation, most people obey the instructor in order to benefit their own well-being.
Now, Angela Andrews, would you please explain the biopsychosocial analysis of Jane Elliott's Blue-Eye, Brown Eyes experiment?
I would love to. First, I would like to discuss the biological influences. The children acted the way they did as a result of hormones, which are secreted through the pituitary or the master gland. The pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus brain region, which is linked to reward and emotion. The effect of hormones is evident when the better eye-colored children became aroused by their teacher's approval. Their heart rate went up because they had a desire to please their teacher. They became aroused and they wanted to fight the opposite eye color because they knew that their teacher would reward them with compliments. Now I'd like to discuss the psychological influences. These children demonstrate social conformity. I am sure every child involved in this experiment thought about what they should do to seem normal and accepted.